Hello and welcome to Grow Your Coaching Business, the expert interviews. I'm Jackie Jarvis and I'm today interviewing David Yeabsley. Hello, David.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm interviewing David for the Trusted Coach Directory and I've got lots of questions to ask David. David is the author of How to Future-Proof Yourself. And he's a speaker, he's a trainer, he's a coach, and he's also the director of the People Animators. So we're really happy to have you here today, David. I'm going to be asking you quite a lot of questions to find out how to future-proof yourself as a coach, because that's what we're all interested in. And both of us being coaches ourselves, obviously we have experience of that, of doing just that. So I hope that will come through during the interview. So David has actually successfully run his own training and coaching business, the People Animators, for the last 21 years. And he's been working with companies of all sizes and sectors, and he's basically loved every minute of it. He's now used all of the 21 years of training interactions, coaching conversations, personal stories and experiences to write his book and develop a YouTube channel. The theme is future-proof yourself, how to stay relevant and value for the rest of your working career whilst enjoying your work. That's a big challenge, I know. And David will share his ideas on future-proofing yourself and future-proofing your coaching business. And I hope that you'll connect with him and share that future-proofing journey. So, David.
Hello.
Hello. Got some questions for you.
Wonderful. Far away.
So I'm really excited to see that, you know, you've got that book out. That's fantastic. And so maybe you might like to outline, just to start with, what's actually meant by future-proofing?
Okay. Well, it all started off when I was, believe it or not, 16. It's a bit of a sad story. I came home from school one day, just before I was leaving school. And as I came home from school, I noticed my dad's car was parked in the driveway. And I went into the house and my dad was sat in his chair and he was actually crying. And I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Well, they don't need me anymore." I said, "What do you mean they don't need you anymore?" And he said, "Well, I've been made redundant." And he'd worked at the same company for about 30 odd years. He was a very clever guy. He dealt with the production of precious metals for a large company up in London. And as I said, very clever chap. And he never saw it coming. He then really struggled after that to find other jobs. And so from that day onwards, I thought, well, if I don't look after myself, who's going to do it for me in terms of my development? I went to work for a large life insurance company in High Wycombe as I left school, and it was like moving from one institution to another. And I saw lots of my dads there who'd just been doing the same job for many years. And unfortunately, what happened to him happened to a lot of them, because a couple of years after I left, I actually made myself leave. And yeah, that company reorganized and restructured, as they say. And yeah, a lot of people got made redundant and they all struggled. And all the way during my working career, I never really enjoyed working in the corporate environment. I dare say, like a lot of people watching this, I always had the visions of working for themselves and wanting to be coaches. And yeah, eventually I was able to set up my own business. And yeah, how am I going to keep myself relevant and value to these companies for the rest of my working career? So I've tried to live the future proofing, and as well as encouraging other people to do the same.
Yeah, no, it's true. We were just talking earlier about this whole thing of, you know, we're coming into 2020, and the marketplace changes so dramatically. It has changed so dramatically over the last years, and you almost just can't stay doing the same thing as you've always done.
Yeah.
Especially when you're out coaching other people, working as a trainer. You know, I'm guessing that you yourself have had to work very hard to future-proof yourself and your own business. So
Constantly.
How you know, is the book part of that journey for you?
Yeah, the book is a lot of personal stories of all sorts of people I've met along the way, and my own experiences. Unfortunately, when I left school, I didn't really get school, and I wasn't particularly academic. So I only actually left with one qualification. And but what I've been brilliant at all the way through my career is learning from experiences, but constantly updating those experiences, keep coming outside my comfort zone and challenging myself to constantly develop in all sorts of different areas. So the book is very much a personal story, but also examples of lots of people I've met along the way and their stories, and linked in with that, lots of tips and techniques on all sorts of areas, everything from networking to being focused and not procrastinating, to updating your skills on a regular basis, and reflection that we can talk about as we go along.
Yeah, so something stimulated that subject, didn't it? Because I know we talked when we met at the PSA, I remember you mentioning the idea of this whole thing about future proofing and how important it was. What was it that stimulated that point in time we decided, right, now's the time to go for it?
Well, I guess like a lot of people, everyone watching this, their markets are changing. Certainly my training market has changed immensely. It's not that companies don't want to invest in coaching and training. It's more of a case that they can't, and they're not prepared to release people to do it. So the money's there. It's not as if all the financial accountants are saying, no, we're not doing training on coaching, which used to happen. It's more about people releasing or getting released from their everyday jobs to actually do it. And yes, it's, we could all sit here and discuss the downside of that, but that is a reality. So what I'm trying to do is to find another way of engaging with people to help them, manage their own self-development.
Yeah, so you're in fact, in a way, partly trying to look at ways to repackage what you do to suit the way the market is moving and the amount of time people can devote to that kind of training engagement. I think also one thing, because I used to be in training quite a few years ago, that was how I got started. I was actually in corporate training with a career in EMAP. And I remember when we were running this big training center, people would have like 3 days to attend a program, and that's, it seems now, God, would you give someone 3 days on a management training program? Stay in a hotel, go on for 3 days of presentation skills course. That just doesn't happen now, does it?
I mean, quite often if I'm delivering management programs, it is, we split it into half-day sessions and then follow that up with coaching conversations on the telephone, and then perhaps over a period of time, some face-to-face coaching. So it's a whole package now. It's not just the training course, which is better because it's longer lasting, because people turn up for 3-4 days on a management program and think, right, I'm going to go back and change the world. But the following week, they'll back to reality and find it very difficult. So following up with the coaching, be it telephone coaching, email coaching, and face-to-face, it does have its benefits. So that's changed. I mean, it'd be lovely if companies would book me for a 4-day management course once a week, for every week. Life would be easy then.
Yeah, and I think
but it's not reality.
No, it isn't. And I think in terms of us as coaches, because obviously I'm do my coaching. I've done my coaching, delivered my coaching in lots of different ways, and recently have reinvented myself as the walking business coach. Doing things out walking, slowing things right down, taking people out walking for their coaching, and you're moving your business forward in a slightly different direction too. So why would you say it's important to future-proof yourself as a coach and as a trainer? Why is that important?
Okay. Well, as I said, our market is changing. So it's very much that we've got to practice what we preach. So do we create our own thinking and reflecting time? I love the opportunity that working with such diverse range of organisations, I'm constantly finding out how they're developing, changing in their markets. That gives me lots of new ideas, which is something I work very hard on, in spending time really getting to understand them and their journey. And I'm often saying to people, not where you see yourself in 10 or 5 years' time. I think those questions are perhaps have moved, but where do you see yourself in 2 years, 1 year, 6 months? Because there's a lot of market changing very quickly.
Yes.
And I think we have to be very adaptable and flexible in our approach to being available and having different ways of engaging with people, which is very important. I've been working very hard on.
Yes. And also things like technology. I mean, that's obviously a big thing. When I delivered training in the old days, I think we used OHPs, I can remember that far back. I'm really giving myself away here, but, things have moved on. And as a coach and trainer, obviously you've got to move with the way that training and coaching is delivered and received now. How's that changed, from your perspective?
Well, quite often it's spending time understanding, the who, the what, the why, and the when of the training. Who you're training, why you're training it, what do they need, when and where, and how you're going to deliver that. But I think it's about engaging with your participants before they actually get into a training room with pre-course questionnaires and videos to stimulate their minds and get them thinking, so they turn up, understanding why they're going to be there and what they're looking to achieve, but also they've already started the learning process and started thinking about this. And then afterwards, there again, it's about constantly staying engaged with them with different resources and getting them to be responsible for their learning. I think long gone are the days of people then thinking, well, why should I learn this? If they want me to develop my skills, they need to pay me more. Well, you've got to develop your skills and learn more just to stand still at the moment. So I think more and more people are realising that they've got to really fully engage with their development. Just a very quick story that I say to people is that I dare say we've all sat down and thought, well, I need to improve my eating habits, or perhaps go on a diet, or perhaps go and, join a gym and get myself fit, go running or walking or whatever. Perhaps we've had a clear out of the house and cleared out certain rooms. Perhaps we've been to a financial advisor and got mortgage or pensions or insurance advice. But how often do people actually sit down and think, well, the biggest investment I can ever make is in my own development? Mm-hmm. When was the last time most people sat down is, what's my plan for developing my skills for my future? And this comes in different generations that we can perhaps go on and talk about a bit later.
Yes, and in terms of as a coach, because the people watching this this moment in time will all be either, executive coaches, coaches in some different context, or even trainers and coaches and speakers like us.
Yes.
So what do you think that we need to be aware of most in terms of the marketplace and the future proofing of our business?
I think on the whole that I dare say there's many people watching this that aren't good coaches. Most people you meet, I meet a lot of different coaches, a lot of different speakers and trainers. People are very good, but how are you getting your message out there? I think delivering and having the coaching conversations is the easy bit. Winning the business is becoming more and more challenging.
Yeah.
And showing that we are present and of value to our clients on an ongoing basis, and we're an ongoing resource, for a period of time, and you build that long-term relationship with them. I personally think that's one of the biggest challenges. How you invest in terms of your marketing and your social presence. We've spoken in the past about perhaps coming away from all the noise on social media and just trying to build really good relationships with, individually written letters in the post, handwritten envelopes. I'm often sending books to people and trying to engage with people with letters and packages through the post, normally books, and also emails, and coming away from just, the whole, the noise of all those not clinically delivered emails, but the mass-produced emails. We've got to change our relationships, and really, I think, constantly realise that the relationship is important. And I think if we all continue to develop that, is important, as well as our own learning. And I think we can. I certainly would say, as a coach, what I love about coaching is that actually I learn so much from the people that I'm having the conversations with.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, we were talking about, this thing about, it's almost like you're saying, in a way, like the market's changing and it's moving so fast, there's so much noise, technology, everything's moving at such a rate. In a way, what we're doing is saying to future-proof ourselves, rather than going with that flow and just changing ourselves and morphing into something that we don't even feel comfortable with. You're almost saying, what about going back to the past? Now, I'm a believer in that myself, going back to to actually spend a bit more time on personal relationships, because even things like using the phone, not many people use the phone now.
Yes.
Because lots of it's done via email, by phone, by Snapchat, by messaging, etc., and social media. And actually the phone doesn't ring very much. So I've found if you actually pick the phone up and have that personal conversation, it's actually much more powerful than it used to be. So it's almost like reverse proofing yourself in a way, isn't it? It's reversing out of what you don't like and saying, well, you know what, I'm going to go back to how it used to be and have a personal conversation with somebody. It's one of the reasons I went this direction to the walking business coaching, and I do a lot of my meetings walking. I spend a lot more time on them. I'm a lot more selective about the people that I have those meetings with, and we go for a walk and talk. And I find that much more comes out of that than it would if I just, bombarded with social media messages and, email messages. So, what you were saying about those personal relationships, I think is key to the engagement of the future.
Yeah. And also, I think it's, as we've discussed in the past, it's about having your social media, making it very personal, and developing those relationships. It's using a whole host of different methods. I still actually do send 150, 200 Christmas cards, handwritten. I know not many people do that, but I get a lot of comments and say, well, nobody else does this anymore. We really appreciate it. Follow-up letters, as well as the social media part to keep that regular, or to keep yourself in front of people. So it's using a whole host of different marketing methods, but also learning from what other organisations are doing. And as I said, I think that's a great privilege as a coach, is that whilst we're coaching, and obviously we've got great words of wisdom to give people and ask those great questions to get people thinking, reflecting and working things out for themselves. I think that's an opportunity for us to understand and learn about their businesses and how their businesses are developing, and what we can learn from them as well.
I think that real understanding about how the businesses that you're working with are changing. And I think your comment about asking people where will they be in 10 years, 5 years, 6 months, or even next week, those are, it's becoming a bit more immediate, isn't it? And you've got to be flexible with the methods that you use to deliver that training or deliver that coaching. And unfortunately, I'm a bit of a technophobe, but I'm using Zoom, as you can see, and it's actually easier than I thought.
It's working very well.
And it's very personal, so I think as coaches, we've got to be open to new ways of delivering what we used to do one-to-one. There might be a way of doing it online that you can look at that encompasses some of the elements of what you do. And you've got to look at the people that you're delivering it to, how are they going to engage with that most, which is what you were saying, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And so one of the big things on Future Proof is reflection, which we're getting people to do when we coach them. But it's then us looking in the mirror and saying, well, okay, well, how often do I do that on myself?
Yes.
So, for example, I use a notebook, which most people do seem to use still these days.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
It is a Future Proof Yourself notebook, but what I have at the back of the notebook is lots of pages with different titles on them for just to go and have a cup of tea with yourself and just sit down and reflect. To put mind maps, personal goals. I use this a lot, and this is one of the big things in future proofing, is really creating that thinking time, as I call it, a cup of tea or coffee with yourself. Turn the phone off, think about where my market is going, where my client's market is going, which is obviously essential, and then starting to think about all other areas that I need to develop. I dare say most of people watching this can remember back when they worked in corporate companies, and we used to have appraisals and personal development reviews.
Yes.
And most people thought, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But we should all be doing this on ourselves on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And actually starting to think, what are the competencies that I need to develop? What skills do I need to develop? Networking and other areas that, really do get people thinking. Now, we'll obviously come on to my YouTube site a bit later on, but there's a video on my YouTube site about the notebook. And if anyone does watch it, and there's an offer for a free notebook, and all you need to do is email me with your address and I'll send you one of my personalised notebooks. It's got lots of tips and ideas in there. It's different to most. It's not just a notebook. It's got lots of things to generate the thinking. But that's really on the first area of future proofing, is making sure that we create that thinking time.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And especially this time of year as well, just before you launch into another year, to actually get that clear path. So important.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing you can do to future-proof yourself and your coaching business, is give yourself thinking time. Also, really understand your clients and their market is number two. Making sure that you update and upskill yourself, and make sure you're not becoming an old fart or an old has-been.
Yeah, very much so.
Gone, so you've got to keep with it, and not.
Well, if I can just stop you there, I employed someone last year to work for me, and they were 23.
Yes.
And I love the concept of a reverse mentor.
Yes.
I personally believe we should all have reverse mentors. Yeah. And if you don't have the opportunity to speak to young adults, go and do some talks in schools, which are always a challenge. But try and find some family and friends have got young adults going out into the working environment and spend time. I'm always sitting down with young adults and saying, so how do you see the world?
Yeah.
You've got to keep yourself employed for the next 50 years of your life. They don't always like that phrase. How are you going to do it? But I think part of our self-development is, and that's helped me immensely in the last year, is spending a lot of time with my son, and he totally gets this concept. He's come out of university, gone to work for a big organisation, and we go out for dinner and have wonderful conversations about this, plus also with his friends. And I quite often will do some mentoring of young adults as well, but I'm not really mentoring them, I'm getting them to mentor me.
Yes, because of course, as you're coaching and mentoring and training, you're learning as well, aren't you? Because you're learning about what people are engaging with and what messages are working and what method of engagement's working as well. So that's great. Okay, so anything else that you would advise us to do to future-proof our coaching businesses? We've got three really good key areas, and a fourth one, actually, learn from young adults and the young people coming into the marketplace as well, and stay open to those changes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
There's a key thing that I dare say a lot of people watching this would have noticed if they are coaching anyone of my generation, sort of middle 50s and beyond, is that some of those people are having a bit of a tough time out there in the working world. They're perhaps getting a tap on the shoulder, thinking they're getting the next step up, but sometimes they're getting the tap on the shoulder and it's sideways or downwards move or even out.
Yeah.
And those people are finding it very difficult to reinvent themselves and go back into the into the recruitment market and win jobs. And it is very important that, as a really good example, that all that has changed immensely, and how people then get back into a job. We can't rely on recruitment agencies necessarily. They've got to reinvent themselves with other methods, which I'm sure coaches watching this, have these conversations with people. But it's realizing that I might have all the skills and the experience, which has got me to where I am now, but for us to sit and think, but is that skills and experience what is needed for the future? And I think it's a really good question to ask ourselves on a regular basis. So what other ways of working and developing? And there again, it is perhaps talking to different people who see things totally different to us, and having those conversations, not necessarily coaching conversations, but just good conversations with people you know. I emailed 2 people this morning actually that I need to catch up with, and one of them is a recruitment advisor in the estate agent's business. I want to learn how his world is changing immensely and how he's developing. Another one is working for I can't really tell you the name of the company, but they're a Formula One racing team, and I actually did some work with them, and I want to sort of catch up with them because even their world is changing immensely, and you know, how they're going to be operating, as in the whole of the car industry. So it's constantly learning from all these different industries and marketplaces, and then think, yeah, how does that apply to me?
Yeah, and definitely keeping up with all those changes and opportunities, because you just can't keep delivering the same. We all want to keep our clients, don't we? It takes such a long effort to win a client. You know, you definitely want to keep them and keep them engaged. So it's very important to keep listening. I think that's the main.
Yeah, we've got to have new things to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
Constantly.
Okay, so just moving on to how you help coaches.
Yes.
So I know that I'm going to show a picture now of your book, and I'd like you to just talk a little bit more about your book, and also some of the other resources that you've got available for coaches that could be incredibly useful. And then we'll move on to the call to action at the end and how to make contact with you. Is that okay?
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, so here's your book.
Yes.
I love the front cover, and you know, really pleased that you got that out there this beginning of the year. It's fantastic. So just give a quick overview of what to expect if someone bought the book, and how to get hold of it.
Okay. Well, it's a bit, I mean, reading the book is a bit like having a coaching conversation with yourself, except for you're reading the questions and then creating the thinking and the reflection time to think about, how am I developing in all sorts of different areas? We've already talked about creating reflection and thinking time, raising your profile about how to sell yourself, and building confidence and self-esteem, which is, I still find fascinating. I'm sure people watching this find it fascinating. I would say 95% of nearly all coaching conversations I've had, doesn't matter who I'm working with and where they are in a business, we end up talking about confidence and self-esteem. So we talk a lot about, in future-proofing yourself, is feeling comfortable and confident to talk about yourself. And also showing vulnerability and sort of expressing vulnerability, but being prepared to learn. So I think, selling yourself, developing confidence, and an aspect that I talk about is professional responsibility. And that is about us as coaches being really good at what we do, honing the skills, making sure that, you know, when people do spend time with them, they come away feeling, that was a great investment. Sometimes they're paying us directly. Sometimes the company's paying, but we want them to feel that was a great, that was great value. I've really got something out of that. And it's not just another client, another conversation, and then we're in the car and off to the next one. And it's making sure that we are giving them really good value and getting them to think. So I think raising our own profile and professional responsibility is really, really important. Being very good at what we do.
So the book has quite a lot of the tips and things that we've talked about, but also some reflection exercises and things that people could engage with as they're reading the book. You know, it would help them actually do that reflection on their own future proofing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, very much so. And also depending where they are in their careers. People, young adults coming into the working environment, as I said to my son when I dropped him off in his graduate program, welcome to the next 50 years of your life. And I won't tell you what he replied. To people mid-career thinking, well, I've got quite a hefty mortgage around my neck, I've got family, I've got responsibilities, but am I still loving what I do? Do I want to change? And how they cope with that. And also for, as I said, my generation earlier, how we're keeping ourselves relevant and value and having real purpose. And especially as coaches, that sometimes when work is a little bit quiet, how do we find other things in life to enjoy and feel valued and have a purpose? I talk a lot about that in the book, in terms of, perhaps our mental well-being when we're finding things a little bit difficult, because it all sounds very glamorous, doesn't it? I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer. I'm helping people to solve all their problems, but sometimes we need a little bit of help ourselves.
Definitely. Absolutely. 100%. So if someone wants to get your book,
yes,
how do they get hold of you? Because I've given the website address here, and I understand they can go to your website and go through to the Endless Bookcase and get a copy, or they can get one directly from you.
Yes, please go onto the website, and there's a link on there, or on there they can contact me and via email, which is fine. And also, yes, I've set up, which we haven't really discussed too much about, is my YouTube channel, which is a real important way of me future-proofing myself, and I'm doing a lot of work on that to upscale that before, hopefully, in the new year. Well, we are in the new year, but by sort of March, April, to start developing an online program for people to reflect on and to future-proof themselves, and that will guide them through the whole process of enabling them to stay relevant and valued for the rest of their working careers. So there's quite a lot of resources there. And also, if you want to get in contact and share ideas and material on LinkedIn, that'd be great. Please just find me on LinkedIn, David Yeabsley. And so there's 3 different resources there. Hopefully the 4th with the online program coming in the next few months. Plus also, if you ever just fancy a chat about these types of topics, give us a ring. Be great to hear from you.
Okay, well, that's great. So thanks very much, David. I think that was a really useful interview, and I think it really has raised the subject of the importance of us all future-proofing ourselves and having that constantly in our minds. We can't help other people if we're not also looking inside ourselves and thinking about how we can learn and develop and reflect on where we are in our own coaching careers, and make sure that we stay on it, and stay on track and stay relevant as well.
Yes.
Very important. So it sounds like David's book could be a really good read. So you know how to get that book. And also, if anyone would like a 1-hour Zoom client growth consultation, this is through the Trusted Coach Directory, a special price. That's with me or with Helen. So if you make contact with either the Trusted Coach Directory or with me directly at jackie@walkingbusinesscoach.com, and if you'd like to check out how I've future-proofed myself, have a look at the walkingbusinesscoach.com website, and you can see how I've gone back in time, and I'm doing much more connection with nature with my coaching to help people get that clarity and that important reflection time that you were talking about, David. So that might be interesting for you. So thanks again, David. The interview is fantastic, and I'm sure everybody watching it will get an awful lot out of that. So thanks very much for taking the time to do this. And
great, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, I might go and get a copy of that book myself.
Thank you.